So today I'm sharing something that continues to transform my financial journey and give me a lot of edge over a lot of believers because I don't just wait for a sign or a burning bush. I get to action because I've tuned my ear to hear prophetic instruction daily. And so if you find yourself in a position where you need to hear, you need to know the next steps, this video is for you. Unfortunately, so many Christians have been conditioned to wait for the miraculous signs, to wait for the big picture, to wait for everything to come into focus and to know your next steps. But let me tell you something. You will not have the big picture as you're on your journey to build wealth. Because if you had the big picture already, if you knew every step, then you would not need God. And there is no world in which God would allow you to cut him out of the picture and still claim to be his. And so you have to resist the urge to say, I'll go when I know. You're never going to go then because you're never going to know. You were never meant to know everything. You were never meant to have everything in place because if you were, you wouldn't need God. And some of this is God stuff and you need to be okay with playing your position. So let's talk about building wealth day by day based on what's already whispered in your spirit daily. The Bible tells you that God gives us our daily bread, right? And sometimes we're like, okay, yeah, that is just our daily ability to live, but your daily bread is also the thing that nourishes you. It's the thing that sustains you. It is the thing that you need to continue moving forward. So if he is required to give you our daily bread, then that must mean he's also required to give you daily financial strategy, especially if we believe that he has given us the power to create wealth under the mind of Christ, right? And so we need to understand that you're not going to get fireworks. You're not going to get a burning bush moment. That was a one-time event in the Bible. What you will get is a quiet yet unmistakable voice of wisdom. So today I'm going to show you how to discern that wisdom in your daily financial strategies. Hey y'all, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Dr. Brianna Whiteside, and welcome to Recession Millionaires, where we talk about building wealth and positioning ourselves to be in the cohort of the 2026-2027 millionaire cycle. If you don't know, 2020 ushered in a new cohort of 2021-2022 millionaires, but so many people did not know enough to take advantage of that economic downturn. I was one of them. I was just learning to get my money together, but thankfully we have another opportunity and you don't want to miss this opportunity. So if you missed last cycle, you don't want to miss this cycle, and that is what Recession Millionaires is all about. Before we get started, I want to ask you to please like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and leave me a comment if you find that I say something of importance. Let's go ahead and dive into this video. The first thing I want to tackle is the problem. And the problem here is waiting versus acting. And you know the problem. Subconsciously, you are well aware of the problem. But sometimes that problem isn't in focus, so you can't tackle it. And of course, on this channel, I do talk to believers. And so this content is kind of tilted towards that, but anyone can, learn from me and learn from what I'm saying. But y'all, many believers are stuck because we get stuck waiting on the earthquake. We want the sign. We want the Moses burning bush moment to announce that, hey, the time is now, but you're not going to get that. You're not going to get it. How many times has the burning bush happened in the Bible? How many? So why do you keep trying to limit God to that one strategy, to that one announcement? Why do you want him to repeat himself? Why? You don't even hear like Moses. You're not even living in the same times as Moses. You don't even have the same cultural background as Moses. Why do you want a Moses moment when you don't live in a Moses season? Why do you want a Moses moment when you don't live in a Moses season? It doesn't make sense, guys. It does not make sense. So please stop waiting for that burning bush moment, because every time you do wait for that, you bide your time and you miss your opportunities. Every day is pregnant with opportunities. And so many people get trapped in that praying fervently for a financial breakthrough. And what do they get as a result of that? More times than not, they find themselves still tied to the old ineffective methods because you're still looking for a God in today to operate in the same way that he operated in the Bible. He operated according to their times and seasons. He operated according to their cultural awareness and background. Do you even live near a bush to be burning like that won't burn up everything? No, you don't. So stop looking for it. Please, y'all, please, let's stop. Let's cut it out. Because the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because if you believe that the change of guard is happening or has happened, doesn't that mean that new strategy has emerged as well? If new people are emerging, don't you think new announcements are emerging? New strategy is also emerging to accompany those new leaders? Then why are we still looking for God to do it that way when he's saying, I'm going to do a what? New thing. New means you ain't never seen it before. So let's be clear. Time is of the essence. And God is not waiting for us to get our act together. You had 4 years to do that. You had from 2020 up until now to do that. You don't have any more time to just get your act together. He's already speaking to us. He's already given us the financial strategy, even given us the information when the circumstances appear murky. So let's focus on how to train your ear to hear God in this season so that you won't be caught behind or you won't be kicked out of your cohort where you rightfully belong. The first thing I want you to write down is that we need to recognize God's whisper of strategy. So let's begin to start with the divine nature of communication. God often speaks in whispers and not in uproar. We see this time and time again in the Bible. He's not shouting. He's talking when we're still, whether we hear it or not. He's giving us the information, but sometimes we can't hear it because the world is so loud. But let's look at Genesis. When he created the universe, he simply said, what? Let there be light. You don't see that he's screaming. You don't see that he's competing for attention. No, he's speaking. And the universe and the atmosphere heard him. And what happened? They responded by allowing light to come forth. It wasn't a dramatic moment with pyrotechnics. It was a quiet command that set everything in motion. Let there be light, and there was light. We also see this in 1 Kings. When the prophet Elijah was waiting for God to come pass by, we know he's tired, he's weary, he just can't take no more. And he's waiting for God to pass by, and God allowed powerful winds that tore the mountains apart and shattered rocks. He allowed an earthquake and even a fire to happen before he spoke to Elijah in a gentle whisper. He allowed all of these things to precede him before he came and said, Elijah, what are you doing here? In a whisper. This confirms that you might not have a burning bush moment. You might not have all the loud fanfare that you're looking for to confirm things. We love to look for confirmation. Sometimes you're not going to get confirmation. Sometimes you're going to have to move on what you hear, because when it comes to financial strategy, y'all, time is of the essence, and God is not going to wait for you to get 3 confirming messages and then request a 4th one. Time is of the essence. You have to move on what you hear. And I know this because daily, Holy Spirit is required to help you. And since that is required of him, that means that he is whispering insights and nudging you towards moves that might not be as obvious to the world. He will give you the insider information. So maybe it's a conversation you had. Maybe it's sudden clarity on an investment idea. Maybe it's a moment of peace as you're reviewing accounts. Who knows? The key is to quiet your mind and listen beyond your natural fears and desires. And that's where kingdom wisdom flows. I've had to do this so many times, and sometimes it is uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie and pretend like it's not, but it works. It works. Do you want to be uncomfortable and have it work for you? Or do you want to be comfortable and then be in disarray later on because something happens and you didn't move because you didn't obey, and now you stuck crying, spitting, and farting, praying for a miracle? Which one do you want? Which one do you want? The next thing that I want to talk about is how to train your ears for divine information. So you have to ultimately cultivate sensitivity. You have to cultivate sensitivity. So many things come to us to distract us, and it's not always our fault. Sometimes life just be lifing, but you have to be more disciplined and diligent about creating and cultivating sensitivity, especially right now, as we try to advance towards wealth. So some ways that you can do this is you can create your quiet space. So this is when you maybe set aside time each day for reflection away from distractions. Like sometimes if you're a parent, you may not have a lot of time, but can you do this on a drive home? Can you do this in a shower? Can you do this? Do you have like 5 minutes? It doesn't take that long for God to speak, but can you kind of use the time that you have to cultivate this quiet space? Turn off the noise, both external noise and internal chatter. You got to kind of shut down. The next thing you can do is engage in focused prayer. So I don't want you to keep asking God for a sign. Oh, give me a sign. Y'all know that song. I don't want y'all to keep asking God for a sign. I want you to ask him for a strategy. So you can say, Lord, reveal the next step in my finances. Show me how to multiply what I have. You see, that's a difference in prayer. Instead of asking for a sign, you're saying, hey, show me the next step. That's strategy. Show me how to multiply what you've already given me, because I know you expect the ROI. And I know the Bible says that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, right? That's a slight shift, but it can yield you a big result. Third thing you can do is journal your insights. You can write down anything that you sense, even if it feels small. We see that smallness matters, and patterns generally emerge in small movements. And so that is where you'll begin to see the strategy emerge from the small movements that you're recording, but you have to be able to review them. And then number 4, you can test and reflect. You don't want to ever wait for perfection. Perfectionism is kind of rooted in pride, I think. So I don't want you to get caught up in trying to wait for the perfect opportunity and the perfect time. You need to move on insight that you have, review what has worked, and then refine as you go. That's key. Refine as you go. Not, let me hurry up and try to refine this and make it perfect. No. Refine as you go, because if you refine as you go, you'll notice that over time, your confidence in what you're hearing will sharpen. You have to build up that confidence, y'all. Okay. So take these nuggets with you. And of course, it wouldn't be a video of mine if I did not give you a faith insight. Let's talk about how God gave Noah a financial strategy disguised as an ark. Generally, when we hear about Noah, we think about obedience, right? We think about his righteousness, we think about his faithfulness, but rarely, if ever, do we think about his strategy or think about him as being a strategist or even just being strategic. So, when we look at his story, though, go ahead and turn your Bibles to the story of Noah and read it in your own time. But when we look at his story, we'll see that God gave Noah a blueprint. He gave him dimensions. He gave him timing. He gave him material. He gave him function. But he did not give him all the other things. Ultimately, God gave Noah strategy disguised as an ark. So when we finally get to Noah's story and everything that happens, we begin to see that the story of the ark was not just a story of survival, but of preservation, wealth transfer, and generational legacy. And here is why I talk about wealth transfer and generational legacy. Because when the flood waters receded, Noah and his family emerged as the only stewards of every remaining resource on earth. What do I mean by a remaining resource on earth? Well, number 1, he stepped off the ark with livestock, which in biblical times equaled wealth. Number 2, he carried seeds and food for the new world. Number 3, he retained the labor power of his family. And number 4, he had access to all the land untouched and unclaimed. So ultimately, while everyone else lost their inheritance, Noah inherited dominion. That is wealth transfer. Noah stepped into an economic monopoly. He and his family were the only survivors. They survived with the only remaining resource of this land. Therefore, they were set up to rule, to what? To have dominion. So we see when we look at his story from this perspective, that it was about divine strategy wrapped in obedience. God didn't give Noah rain. He gave Noah plans. Okay? Look at that. He didn't give Noah rain. We love singing that song, asking heaven, send the rain, send the rain, send the rain. But really, if ever, do we ask heaven to send the plans? We don't ask heaven to send the plans because that requires work on our part. We don't want to work. We tired of working. We don't want that life. But it's because we've been conditioned subconsciously to be lazy. It's because we don't want to work to reap the harvest. It's because we've subconsciously believes that miracles are better than strategies, but miracles are heaven's lottery system. You don't get to decide who gets a miracle. We all have our names in the pot, but what you can do that will ensure wealth is obey the strategy and work the strategy that God gave you. We see with the story of Noah that God didn't give him a flood forecast. No one knew when it was going to rain. He gave him building instructions because it don't matter when it's going to rain. That's a God thing that don't have nothing to do with you. What matters is you obeying the blueprint. So we know that Noah wasn't told when the storm was going to come. He was told what to build in the meantime. He was told to move before there was rain, before there was confirmation, before the environment justified his faith. Noah had to do a lot before he saw the thing that he was building for. And what he built in private preserved his family. It positioned him for legacy and transferred all the earthly resources into his hands. So when I say that God is not going to drop money in your lap, I mean it. You've never seen it happen. But what you have seen happen, biblically and in the lives of other people, is that he does drop blueprints. He drops dimensions and timed instructions that may seem unreasonable at first. But if you move on them, they will always deliver you the overflow that you need. Just like the ark. The next move God whispers to you might not look like financial strategy at all. It may not. It may be something weird, a thought, a fleeting thought, something that you saw that you had this impression to do and to pay attention to. It may not look like financial strategy, but when you obey and build it, you may find that it becomes the very vessel that carries your family and your finances into a new economy. Because what happens when economic downturns happen? What happens after? New economies emerge. So in this economy, where we find ourselves in 2025, I want you to know that while many are retreating, those who are listening are positioning themselves. So ultimately, the question is never, is God speaking? The question is, are you sensitive enough to act when he whispers something unconventional? It always doesn't make sense until it makes sense. It always seems crazy until it happens, right? And so I want you to know that one instruction can shift everything, and it will help you move into new dimensions of wealth that you didn't even project for yourself. But you have to be willing to do the thing that looks crazy, willing to do the thing that no one believes you can do, willing to do the thing that nobody thinks is possible. It is only impossible because they haven't seen you do it with God. So you need to keep that in mind, y'all. You need to keep that in mind. I know we talk about obedience. Obey, obey, obey. Yes, obedience is hard. You're going to have to obey crying. I do it all the time. But what you need to be clear about is that in your obedience, it is baked and packed with legacy. It is baked with packed with generational wealth. It is baked and packed for the things that you've been praying for, but you can't unlock them because you're not moving on them. So this week, I want you to do two things. Number one, I want you to set 10 minutes aside every day to quiet your mind and ask God, Lord, what is the next move you want me to take financially? Then I want you to write down every whisper, every prompt, and every insight, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, because it may not be insignificant after all. After you do those things, I want you to test one of those insights this week. That is how you get more confident. That is how you build more trust in God and yourself, because God trusts builders, not just the wishers. You can wish for a better day all you want. Until you decide to do something about it, it ain't nothing gonna happen for you. And we have to sit with that uncomfortable truth, okay? So if this message has confirmed anything you've been sensing, I want you to share with a friend who needs clarity as well. And if you're ready to step into a new season of strategy and understanding, I want you to book a one-on-one strategy session with me or grab the Wealth Mastery Bundle, equipped with 2 ebooks, How I Climbed Out of Consumer Debt in 8 Months and How You Can Too, and How I Saved $20,000 in 1 year and how you can too. Both links are in the description. And one thing I want you to remember is that God doesn't need to be shouting to be speaking. I'll see you in the next episode of Recession Millionaires. Bye, y'all.